A lot of camp training focuses on emergencies, conflict, behavior management, big activities, major leadership moments. But so much of camp is actually shaped by the small moments. Join us as we dive into the little stuff. Running camp should be about people, not paperwork. UltraCamp helps you manage staff, registration, and communication in one place, so you spend less time on tasks and more on camp. Find out more at ultracampmanagement.com/campcode. Welcome to Camp Code, a podcast for camp people who care deeply about building better staff, stronger culture, and more intentional camp communities. Gabrielle is here with me today, all the way from Camp Woro. And as always, before we get into the discussion, we'll begin with introductions. Gabrielle.
Hey everybody, I am calling from Camp Woro. I'm surrounded by snow. My name is Gabz. My pronouns are she, her, elle. And at Woro, we practice creating a positive environment for girls and gender minorities. And we do that in French and English.
Thanks, Gab. And I'm Beth Allison, co-owner of Camp Pecker and Go Camp Pro. My pronouns are she, her, and today I'm enjoying currently a bit of sunshine and 21 degrees Celsius or 74 Fahrenheit. So I'm
Nice.
feeling spring, and that's exciting because I'm getting ready for trainings and all of that. Today is our very last episode of the season, and we want to talk about something that we think quietly shapes almost everything at camp, but that often gets way less training attention than it deserves. And that is this: the in between moments, the small interactions, the not big enough to be a crisis moments, the ordinary stuff. Because when we train staff, we focus on emergencies, behavior issues, conflict, activities, supervision, and all those big visible leadership moments. And yes, don't get us wrong, those really matter. But so much of camp culture is not actually built in the big moments. It's built in transitions, greetings, awkward pauses, waiting time, meal times, lineups, cabin downtime, walking between activities, and all the little interactions that happen in between the main things. And if staff don't know how to lead those moments intentionally, camp can become more chaotic, more disconnected, less inclusive, more reactive, and less emotionally safe. So today we want to talk about how to train staff for the in-between moments, because those small interactions often shape camper belongings, staff relationships, parent trust, and the emotional tone of camp more than we realize. So let's get into it. I'm going to go first here. One of the most useful truths that we can teach staff is this: camp is not mostly made up of big moments. Camp is mostly made up of repeated small ones. Yes, campers remember the campfire, the overnight, the theme day, the big game, and the talent show. But what often shapes whether they actually feel safe, connected, and known is much smaller. So things like who greeted them in the morning, whether somebody noticed that they were sitting alone, how a counselor responded when they were quiet, whether transitions felt chaotic or held, whether mealtime felt inclusive or stressful, whether awkwardness was ignored or guided, whether adults paid attention to the emotional temperature of the group. That is huge, because a lot of camp success actually lives in the nothing special is happening right now moments. And if staff don't know that, they can unintentionally drift through the exact moments that matter most. Now, this is not because staff don't care. It's often because they've been trained to think the important parts of camp are only activities, discipline, emergencies, or when something big happens. So they unconsciously treat the in between moments like filler or downtime or dead space. And dead space at camp rarely stays dead. It usually becomes one of these things: awkwardness, exclusion, dysregulation, weird social dynamics, unnecessary conflict, low level chaos, or emotional disconnection. And I think this is one of the most powerful training reframes that you can give staff. Transitions are not empty. Waiting time is not empty. Downtime is not empty. Ordinary moments are not empty. They're where leadership lives, and that is a really powerful thing to teach. So I think these are the skills staff need for the in-between moments. If we want staff to lead these moments well, we need to train some very specific skills. So for me, I would say the big ones are noticing, initiating, including, regulating the energy, and using those small moments to build connection. So don't worry, I'll go through them all in detail. But first, we're going to hear from Gabrielle.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear all about that. I'm going to start with something very, very simple, but I think it's one of those things that sometimes at camp we forget to emphasize the importance on, and that's calling people by each other's names as often
Mhm.
as possible. And most camps do have name tags or, the little tree cookies where you write campers' names on. At our camp, you have to wear them for 3 days. That's your meal pass. If you want to get into the dining room, you need to have your name tag and it has to be at a height that people can see the names. But typically campers and if you wanna start with building connection, you wanna start building trust, you wanna start building those small moments, using your campers' names over and over and over again, saying, "Thank you, Jessica. Can you pass the milk, please?" Ibra. These are the type of things that helps campers start to feel like they're being seen. Younger campers also tend to have a really hard time remembering each other's names. So teach your staff members instead of saying she did this or he, or could you ask them to say the camper's name and normalize it's okay when we forget each other's names, it's okay to ask what people's names are. And then especially for counselors to consistently in front of campers use counselors' names. The amount of times that I've asked campers who their counselor is, and they sort of look at me with a blank space. They're like, "It's the tall one with the curly dark hair." Typically those are your younger campers, but you can feel like you belong to something if to something special if you don't know people's names. So start with the importance and the value of our campers' names and that when we're calling campers' names on that first day that our staff members have practiced that it's become part of their muscle memory to know their kids' names. And if they don't have that privilege, maybe sometimes I did work at a camp where we found out the day of who our campers who were, and it just was the way it was, that's what we're doing for the next 3 days is practicing and saying names, but make it part of your mission to say each other's names.
I love that. And when I was directing, they got their list the day before and we had week-long sessions. So they had lots of different names all summer long.
Mhm.
And they had to memorize their 8 names on their list by staff meeting the next day. So we would often go around and say, "Okay, Gabrielle, who are your campers?" And they because if you can memorize them initially, then all you're doing is putting faces to those names when those kids arrive.
That's right.
And I think that's just a little trick to make sure that you know who your campers are and that you're using your names. So
It's a
thanks for
safe
that, Gab.
yeah. It's a safety thing, it's a connection thing, it's a sense of belonging thing, and it is overlooked often, but emphasizing in your staff training is gonna make already a difference during the summer.
Perfect. And make sure you're getting the names right because it's really kind of uncomfortable if
Yes.
somebody calls you by the wrong name over and over again.
Yeah.
All right. We'll get into more of this after our ad from our great sponsors. We'll be right back. For Camp Code listeners, unlock UltraCamp's operations checklist for new directors, a free download to help you prepare for a smooth season. Find it at ultracampmanagement.com/campcode. Running camp comes with countless moving parts. UltraCamp helps you stay on top of them. Organize activities and daily schedules, manage wait lists and cabin assignments, automate billing and payments, centralize all camper and staff info in one place. With UltraCamp, camp operations run smoother, so directors can lead with confidence. Book your free customized demo at ultracampmanagement.com/campcode. And we are back. I want to talk about skill number 1 that I mentioned earlier, which is noticing. And this is where everything starts. And Gabs and I did a deep dive on this kind of thing a few episodes ago. So if you'd like more, go back and listen. But staff need to learn how to notice who is lingering at the edge, who looks unsure, who is left out, who's getting louder because maybe they're dysregulated, who is checked out altogether, who's trying to connect but doesn't know how, what the emotional temperature of the group is. That's camp leadership. Noticing is what allows staff to intervene early instead of waiting until a problem gets bigger. And I think this is one of the best things camp can help teach young adults in general is pay attention to people, not just to the plans, not just to the schedules, but to people. That's such an important skill. Number 2 was initiating. So a lot of campers, and honestly, a lot of staff too, are waiting for somebody else to make the first move. And in between moments, that matters a lot because if staff don't initiate, you often get that awkward silence or that social clumping or exclusion, or you just get energy dropping off a cliff. So we need to teach staff that part of leadership is I will go first. So that could mean starting a conversation, inviting someone into the circle, suggesting a mini game, checking in with a quiet camper, creating structure when the moment needs it, breaking that social inertia. It's a very trainable skill, and you can practice this during staff training. So it's one of the biggest differences between staff who passively supervise and staff who actively shape camp culture. Number 3 was including, and this one is massive because so much inclusion work at camp does not happen in the formal conversations. It happens in the small social moments, like who gets invited into a game, who gets asked to sit with you, who gets included in a joke, who gets noticed during lineup, or who gets partnered up without panic, who gets left floating socially while everybody else clusters. So that's the real work, and staff need to understand that belonging is often built through tiny repeated actions, not grand speeches, not one be inclusive reminder, but tiny invitations like, hey, come with us, or do you want me to help you with this? Or you can sit here, or want to walk with me? Let's make room for so and so. These little things change camp for kids, and they're absolutely trainable. Number 4 is regulating the energy. This one I think is so important and so undertaught. The in between moments often go sideways because the staff don't realize that they need to help shape the energy. So sometimes groups need more energy, sometimes less, more structure, more softness, more silliness, more calm, more direction, more connection. And the strong staff get better at sensing what does this moment need from me? That part is leadership, not what do I feel like doing, but what would help this group right now. And that is a really mature staff skill and one that makes a huge difference in camper behavior and transition smoothness and emotional safety and group culture. And finally, number 5 is using those small moments to build connection. The best staff know how to use ordinary moments to build relationships. And that can look like learning a detail about a camper while they're walking somewhere, like they love dinosaurs, or making space for a one on one check in, or asking really great questions at lunch, not just how was your morning, using lineup to create belonging instead of just control, noticing a staff teammate who seems off, or turning nothing time into relationship time. And honestly, this is where some of the deepest camp magic actually happens. Not always in the giant program moments, but in the walking side by side or snack table conversation or the waiting in line jokes or quiet check ins after a rough activity or a tiny moment where somebody feels seen. That matters so much. And I'm going to share more about what all those look like. But first, we're going to hear some brilliance from Gabrielle. No pressure.
Oh, yeah, no, no,
I
no,
know,
it's pretty
I know
I
it will
am
be brilliant.
I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes. That's what so I think I wanna go to centering your staff around the why we're at camp, and Beth and I often talk about our mission, and we often hear about camp magic, and Beth brought up, like, the sense of belonging, and we've worked over the many years that we've been doing the podcast, we've
Hmm.
been trying to define what camp magic means, and we sort of boiled it down to camp magic is belonging to something special. And you can't belong to something special unless you belong first. So the sense of belonging is the most important piece when it comes to campers feeling like this is their special place, home away from home. And so when we demystify camp magic, that's just not something that just poof happens, that staff members, the secret ingredient is a sense of belonging. It sort of gives them that compass when you're showing them, best sort of touch points here that she was talking about. So maybe starting with that. When I'm looking at regulating energy, sometimes that's something that can be complex for staff members. You can see a bunch of kids laughing and giggling, and you might think that if you say if a bunch of campers are laughing and giggling, is that good energy? Is that negative energy? And it always depends. So a way of looking at energy and a way of actually looking and observing a group is I like to look at two things. Is it calm or chaotic? That's one piece. And then the other piece
Mhm.
is there connection or disconnection? So sometimes when things are nice and calm and there's connection because there's maybe a couple of kids reading a book, but you can sense the energy is connected. Sometimes when there's chaotic energy, but they're connecting because they're just running around having a great time, that feels good, et cetera, et cetera. But if it's chaotic energy and they're disconnected, sometimes it's one kid's being left out, other kids are making fun of that one individual camper, or one camper's trying to dictate to the rest of the campers how to play the game just the way she wants it to be played. There's a disconnect from each other and themselves. And so teaching staff members that sort of matrix of looking at calm versus chaotic, because we love chaos at camp. A little bit of chaos can be really good time. Are the campers connected in that moment? Are they connected to themselves and others, or are they disconnected? And those are the pieces when we're helping staff members with observation, noticing, and when we're looking at including and regulating energy. This is just a framework that you can use when you're talking to them about those type of things. I think also when we're also trying to have like those fun moments and we're trying to create that camp magic or a sense of belonging to something special, a lot of the times, as Beth was mentioning, if we think about the fireworks night or the big game that you plan at the end of the summer, I would challenge your staff members to try to get to the dining room or to the buses in a different way that they would typically go. And this is an exercise that veteran staff know how to do with their campers, sort of sneaking around a tree and pretending like nobody can see you or hopping like a bunny rabbit or, whatever that might be. But during staff training, putting in these little moments and challenging some of your veteran staff to encourage your new staff members to do just walking from point A to point B in a fun and original way that is fun to their age group. So yes, so those 17, 18, 19-year-olds, if it's fun for them, then it's going to be fun for the younger kids as well. So these are just simple things that you can put into to your staff training when you're talking about these points that Beth is bringing up.
And have your return staff share their best ideas.
Exactly.
That's a great way to get them involved in those kinds of conversations too. I had a staff member many years ago. She's now a mother herself, but she was given at junior co-ed camp a cabin full
Mm.
of 8 7-year-old boys. Now she had a male co-counselor, and so she slept in a different cabin, but she was with them all day long. And they were hyper children.
Yes.
And she was a
My
member of
people.
her, yes, she was a member of her university track team. So Danny literally ran them everywhere. So you
Hmm.
always knew what cabin was going by because you could see them just running and screaming and having the greatest time. But they would run from the beach to the arts and crafts building to the dining hall. They were just literally running as fast as they could go. And she wore them out by the end of every day. It was
Yeah.
perfect. But that was just what worked for that group of kids. So figure out what works with yours.
Yeah.
That
And I
would be
would say
great.
I would say that I learned at Camp Candler, and I can't remember who taught it to me, but I worked at a camp in Ontario for school groups, and I had a very similar high energy group. And our first activity was canoeing, and I could tell you immediately I knew it was not safe for me by myself with this group. So I need to go find the camp director because we had to change programs because my group was not ready for going in the water. It wasn't going to be safe. So he had shared running and yodeling and seeing how far you could get while you run and yodel. Well, a bunch of little boys, I'll tell you, 12-year-olds running and yodeling was maybe the funniest thing and they were like, please, can we run and yodel? Please. I was like, no, now we have to go do archery. That is just that's like after archery, can we run and yodel? So, and I'm sure this was something that came to, was just a fun thing that somebody came up with and then just shared it with the
Hmm.
group. But these are the little moments, Beth, that you're talking about are They don't have to be run and yodel. They don't have to be,
Mm.
this or that. But carving out time during staff training to and encouraging and role modeling to them the different ways. Even think about your first day when you're doing a tour with your staff members and you're showing them the site. How are you doing it in a way that is just creates those connections, that just creates laughter, that creates getting to know each other? How are you doing that? And take pressure off of yourself. Get your returning staff members to come up with it. They've done the tour so many times. They're not paying
That's right.
attention anyways. So get them to come up with, when we're going from point A to point B, I want us to get there in a unique and different way.
I love that. I love that. All right. So I want to describe sort of what it looks like with each group of people at your camp. So let's make it concrete. So, what does this kind of thing look like with campers? So, it might include teaching your staff how to greet them intentionally, to notice social isolation early, to create mini engagement during transitions, as we just talked about, to use waiting time for connection instead of chaos, to redirect energy before it escalates, help kids enter spaces more comfortably, or create low pressure opportunities for participation for those who need them. So it's great for campers who are missing home, or the shy ones, or the neurodivergent ones, or kids who struggle socially, or who don't jump into things easily, or kids who are fine but are quietly drifting. And honestly, those are often the kids most affected by the in between moments, not just the big program ones. So if staff can get better at this, camper experience improves dramatically. What does it look like with staff relationships? So these are just, lists that don't have all the answers, but just some of them.
Mm.
So it matters enormously for staff culture because a lot of staff community is built in transitions, in staff room moments or staff lounge moments, or lineup before responsibilities, or cleanup or handoffs or quick check-ins, or low stakes social moments. And staff need to learn that they're also shaping each other's experience through these little interactions. So it means noticing when a teammate is overwhelmed, or inviting someone in socially who maybe is new to staff this year, or checking in after a moment was probably a little bit difficult, or not letting awkwardness just sit there, but using small moments to reset trust and connection. A lot of great staff teams are not built through giant trust falls. They're built through repeated little moments of inclusion and thoughtfulness, humor, and attention. And that's important to teach too. What does this kind of stuff look like with parents? Well, they matter just as much. So, because parent trust is often built or weakened in tiny moments, so things like if you're a day camp, the morning greeting, whether a parent gets eye contact from a staff member, whether staff look prepared, or whether a question gets brushed off or welcomed, whether pickup feels connected or rushed, or whether staff seem calm in transition spaces. Those are in between moments too, and they communicate a lot, sometimes more than the official parent communication does. So staff need to know that the small moments aren't neutral, that they are always communicating something to parents, to campers, to coworkers, to supervisors. And that's why this matters so much. So, how would you train it experientially? Well, honestly, this is one of the best topics to teach experientially because it lives in action. So, here are some of the best ways, like walk staff through in between moment mapping. Take a camp day and ask, where are the transition points? Where is their waiting time? Where do kids tend to drift or get awkward or get dysregulated? Where are the social vulnerability points? That alone is just really helpful. But you want to replay ordinary moments, not just big crises, which you have to do as well. But practice greeting a camper who arrives very unsure and doesn't feel like they want to belong there. Noticing and including somebody who's left out. Handling those 4 awkward moments before an activity starts. Walking a dysregulated group between those kinds of spaces, those activities. Checking in with a teammate after a hard moment. So useful. So teach micro moves and give the staff a toolbox of little things that they can do. So again, this can come from your return staff, and to get all their best pieces of advice, what are some conversation starters they could use? Or mini back pocket games, or inclusion phrases, or quick regulation strategies, low pressure connection moves. That will help a lot. And I would be debriefing invisible moments. So after training activities or, you know, scenarios and stuff or that you're acting out, what happened in the in between moments? Where did connection grow? Where did things start to unravel? Or what did strong leadership look like in those spaces? That makes the invisible visible. And finally, name this skill all summer long. So supervisors can say, that was really strong transition, Gabrielle. Way to go. Or you noticed that camper early and that mattered. You use that waiting time really intentionally, or that was a great inclusion move. If you name it, staff will start to value it. And when they value it, they'll do it more. Gabrielle, over to you.
I love that. Thanks for those tips. I'm jotting those down for my staff this summer. A lot of camps do a daily debrief with their campers at the end of the day. So my favorite is just roses and thorns and buds. Easy peasy, asking what of the day is your rose, which is maybe a highlight of the day, your thorn, which is something that you weren't vibing with too much, and your bud is something you're looking forward to tomorrow. And I think the looking forward to tomorrow is really important. It gives staff members sort of a hint on making sure that that thing is happening, checking with the kid. I'm excited for you for this to happen and getting kids like connected to camp, but it also gives them so much information about what they are connecting with and what they're having a hard time with, and then teaching staff what to do with that information. I love, Beth, that you brought up the parent piece because when you do that, if you're seeing the parents or the kiddos adults once or twice a day, it's so great to be able to have that information. And I know at day camp, life can get really, really busy, but just having that information. So if you do end up talking to a parent, you're able to say, yeah, they struggled with this a little bit today. That's what they shared with me. It shows that you already have a connection. So doing that with staff members during staff training, sometimes we only start these activities at the beginning of the summer. I I have done that myself where poor staff members or first evening returning staff members are like, okay, roses, thorns, and buns. And poor new staff members are like, what is this? I've never done it before. So the tools that we already use and build with connections with our campers, build those small moments of importance, do them during staff training, apply them to your staff members so that they can experience it. It also will work for them as well, and then they know what they're supposed to do with that as well. I'm going to share also Joe Richards, who's a pal of ours on Go Camp Pro. He's also a podcaster and a past co-host with myself on Camp Hacker. He does this thing with his staff members where it's just a bucket of stuff. He basically picks up a bunch of random stuff around camp and then brings together a bunch of staff members and say, okay, you have 20 minutes, you have 15 kids, this is your stuff. I'm going to come back in 5 minutes. Tell me the activity you want to do with your kids. And he says that typically they come up with the zaniest idea. He already has ideas that he would already do with these items. The other thing he says, a lot of the times they try to use all of the items, and then he comes back and says, why use all of it? Why not just one item? Or why not use all of the items? And challenges them to think a little bit differently. But he said by just doing that, it proves to themselves before the campers arrive that when there is those downtimes that you do want to build connections where the kids are calm, but they're not really connecting to themselves or to others. It proves to the staff members that they are creative, that they are able to say yes and come up with great ideas just with the random stuff that is around them.
I love it. I love it. Well, that ends us off, Gab. So we're ready for your famous recap one last time this season.
Oh, recap, recap, recap. Hey, everybody. Camp is about the little moments. And isn't life about the little moments as well? Of course. And at camp, we are trying to teach life skills. And for staff members, those little moments can be scary and intimidating. What if I do something wrong? What if what I'm doing is not really fun? What if the kids think I'm not so cool? This is all things that can be happening in a staff member's head. But we want to emphasize that our number one job is for making campers feel like they belong to something special, and that belonging happens in the little moments. Let's start off with learning each other's names and showcasing that we know the names, using the names, and getting our campers to also practice saying names. It's the first step in making people feel connected so that they can then belong. Beth is also asking people saying, hey, we got to notice the group dynamics that's going on. Let's pay attention. We've also talked in past podcasts that we can put up pictures and images and slideshows and say, what is happening in this picture? What are we experiencing here? So teaching staff members that we are the ones that make the invisible to become visible. We want them to take the first step when kids are not connected. Get staff members, even if there's 3 or 4 other staff members. If nothing has happened, you have the power, and we're encouraging you and empowering you to take that first step. What we want at camp is also inclusion, and we want to regulate our energy, and we want to build connections. Beth was also talking about having your staff members just brainstorm conversation starters. Also, I love the idea of creating a map of where does transition happen at camp. And you know what happens in transition? Growth happens. Right now, I'm sitting in a bunch of snow, but I can see some grass popping up. It's springtime. Transitions is part of growth. Emphasize that at camp and show all those growth moments to your staff members. And one of my favorite things that Beth said today was that invisible moments becomes visible when we talk about them. Create a carved out time for your staff members to debrief those invisible moments, because only when we can give them praise and say, well done, keep going, then that will continue for the rest of your summer. And that's going to pass on to the staff members of this summer, to the staff members of next summer. And you're going to have less headaches on your hand, truthfully, because you're building connections. So the little moments is why Beth and I are doing what we do here with you. We hope you have a wonderful, wonderful season. We are so grateful that you take the time and listen to us. Truthfully, it's very special, the work that we get to do, and we're so grateful for the work that you do and make this world a little bit better just by being you and running summer camp.
It almost feels like the wrap up to the podcast, but we
Right?
sure.
We do.
All right. So you can let us know any topics you would like us to discuss, or any guests you recommend we have on the show, or any great leadership training tips that you want to share. We would love to hear from you, but we won't be doing any podcasting till the fall. So you
That's
got
right.
lots of time to get some ideas to us. Or if throughout the summer something happens and you think, oh, I would really use a podcast on this, shoot us an email and we'll put it on the schedule for season 13. All right. So, Gabrielle, how can they find you, please?
Well, you can check out where I work at waro.com, and you can get in touch with me at info@waro.com. And Waro is spelled Ouareau.
Thanks, Gab. Our website is gocamp.pro. My email, beth@gocamp.pro. And I'm on threads at topaz_faye. And for our next podcast, you will have to wait until the summer is over. So we don't really have a best practice necessarily, but we do have a bit of a wrap up for today. So if I were teaching this particular skill in leadership training, I would probably end with something like this. Some of the most important leadership moments at camp will not feel dramatic. They won't always be the campfire or the skit night or the emergency or the giant breakthrough moment. Often the moments that shape camp most are the small ones, the in-between ones, the ordinary ones. How you greet someone, how you notice them, how you include someone, how you handle waiting time, or how you respond to awkwardness, how you shape the emotional tone of a group. Those things matter a lot. Do not underestimate the power of small moments handled with intention. And honestly, that's such a powerful thing for camp leaders to remember too. Because if we want camp to feel connected and inclusive and calm and relational and emotionally safe, we cannot only train for the big moments. We have to train for the little ones too, because that's where culture lives. Camp Code is part of the Go Camp Pro podcast network, and you can check out all of our other podcasts at gocamp.pro/podcasts. As you head into the summer, we just want to leave you with this: be intentional with your words, with your time, with your energy, with the culture that you're creating every single day. The little things you do now, the conversations you have, the expectations you set, the way you welcome or coach or notice and lead your staff, those are the things that shape the summer more than you know. Not everything will go perfectly. Camp never works that way. There will be messy moments, unexpected challenges, and days that feel endless. But there will also be laughter and growth and connection and joy and the kind of magic that only camp can create. So trust what you've built, trust the people around you, trust the process, and trust that the work you're doing matters deeply. You're helping create an experience that staff and campers may carry with them for the rest of their lives. And we're cheering you on every step of the way. So have a beautiful, meaningful, memory-filled summer. And thanks for the listening, friends. camp hacker, bringing your world into focus.